Very exciting. What a wonderful turnout we got for this meeting. A lot of new people joining us, which is wonderful. A lot of old timers, which is great. So I'll just get started. We've got some kind of preliminary stuff and people will be joining, I'm sure, during this portion. But just again, really wanted to welcome all of the new people. A lot of, there's so much interest and energy now given the crisis. And a lot of people who haven't been active previously are joining the fight, which is wonderful. So welcome to all of you. We need your energy. We need your ideas. And a special thanks to all of you who have been with us for so long. It's been quite a journey and had some ups and some downs. And we just really appreciate you hanging in because we're a very unique, indivisible chapter in a number of ways, which I'll talk about. We started in January of 2017. We started this chapter pretty much right after Leanne Ezra first launched Indivisible. So we're one of the oldest chapters. And at the time, we started as a local group. And we grew slowly, like local groups do. Over the course of the first few years, we grew to about 900 people in Marin. And we had meetings at the local Unitarian church. And then when COVID happened, and it was, of course, the 2020 election year, we took all of our programming to Zoom and then realized that really we could invite and include people from all locations. So currently we're at close to 10,000 people on our mailing list. I think we might be the largest chapter in the country. And we have about just 25% of our list is in Marin, about 35% in California outside of Marin, and 40% people in other states. As far as our history, initially in 2017, we focused on the resistance, right? Fighting back against the first Trump administration. Hard to believe, here we are again, and it's worse. But we'll get into all that, and we're not going to despair. We're going to act. But then realizing that really the way to have an effect on changing the dynamic would be to have power in Washington, because of course in 2017 there was a Republican trifecta. So 2018 we worked hard to take back the House, and Democrats did, and then we proceeded to alternate every year in off-election years working on advocacy with our elected officials and other influencers, and in election years really focused on the campaign work. I'm just glancing at my notes here, not used to chatting totally extemporaneously off slides. But anyway, back to how we are a bit different as a chapter. Number one, we have this geographical diversity. And we also have so many members, and people have a wide range of interests and ways they might want to take action. People may have particular issues they care about. And so the steering committee has given a lot of thought to how in this complex political environment with the unique group that we have, we can best serve you, our members. And we've decided that the best way to serve our members is to be a resource, be a place, our website, be a place where you can go and get information about a range of ways you can help. And many of those ways might be with other groups. We're really asking for our members in this environment to take more personal responsibility for determining your own path for activism, because there are so many ways that we could all help. And so in the past, Marin kind of felt like, well, we can do all the filtering for our members, say in an election year, we can filter what's going on in the broader landscape and tell our members, like, these are the important races, and this is the important way that you can impact the outcome. But now there really isn't any single guidance. There's just a lot of different options. And it's really, I think, important that all of you take it upon yourselves to spend the time to learn and attend various meetings and decide the areas in which you want to spend your time and focus. And we will be there to support you, be a reference and a guide to the extent that we're able. So at this point, and so we've revamped our website, and I will do a walkthrough of the new website in a bit. But first, I want to turn the meeting over to our wonderful Lori Friedman for some comments and insights about the current moment, just to give us all some perspective on what we're facing. So over to you, Lori.
All right. Thanks, Susan. Great to see such a huge crowd here tonight. I'm going to cover the political landscape right now, where we are, what's going to come next. And then Susan will give us a practical way to kind of use that information out there. I want to preface it with a couple of things. Number one, this is an incredibly new situation. It's only been 23 days since he was inaugurated. It seems like a lifetime, but that's a very short period of time. And information and changes are coming very rapidly. We need to be able to respond quickly, but building this kind of a movement is going to take longer than 23 days. I think we've accomplished an amazing amount in a very short period of time, but 23 days is 23 days. There's no precedent for this. Even his first administration is not a precedent for how to react in such a rapidly changing environment. There's no precedent for us. There's no precedent for the press, for the judicial branch, for Congress. We're all going day to day. Our democracy depends on 6 branches, really, the 3 branches of federal government, the states, the press, and the citizens. And it was designed by our founding fathers to be a sort of clunky organization, to be intentionally inefficient, to take a long time for change to occur. And the Republicans have turned that upside down, ignoring laws, ignoring precedent, ignoring norms, or just a sense of human decency. They know that they're not going to be successful with a lot of the things that they're doing. They've lost 95% of the lawsuits that they've filed historically since 2016. Their major message, and I know that we all know this, but I just want to reinforce it, is that they're trying to create the chaos. They're trying to overwhelm us, push things through that we're not able to pay attention to. They are trying to make us discouraged, feel hopeless and helpless. And I'm sure we've all felt that way. We can't let that happen. We have to continue to fight back and not go into that despair, because that's when we go there is when we've really lost our power. So what are these other 5 branches? If you look at the 6 branches, the executive branch, the legislative branch, the judicial branch of our federal government, our states, a free press, and us as citizens, what are the other 5 branches doing? What's the status of those? Because that's where our resistance is going to come. The legislative branch, half of it, has abandoned their constitutional commitment, the constitutional requirement of being a check on the White House. We know that. They have a very slim, over 50% of the legislative branch. But what do we have? What can we do? What can Democrats do in the federal legislature to fight back? And what have they done? We know that we've started an enormous effort in just a few weeks to pressure them. And a lot of what they have done is in response to that pressure. So we do need to take credit for that, and we need to keep it up. On the Senate side, they are built to be an obstructive chamber. There are many, many pathways to obstruct there. We know we've been the victim of that when the Republicans have been the minority. There are very complicated rules and ways to slow down nominations and legislation. We know that we don't have the votes to stop it, but by making it slow, we give ourselves more time to have that dialogue with the rest of the country, to put it into the news, and to lay that precedent down. The filibuster is our greatest tool there. In the first Trump administration, we used it 314 times to stop really horrendous legislation. Certain that we will be doing that even more frequently. The Republicans have made no move to change that filibuster. Many of our representatives say that behind closed doors, the senators are and the representatives are pretty horrified about what's happening. They're probably hopefully they're depending on us to be able to use that filibuster to stop some of the more egregious things. The House works differently. They don't have the same tools. They are the power of the purse. Our biggest weapon there is that they have a very small majority, just a few votes, and a caucus that will not vote by party lines. They are very divided. In order to pass anything coming out of the House, they need Democratic votes. The first test of this will be next week when they start working on the budget. And we'll have to follow that and see what happens. But we really do have a lot of power in the House, even though we're the minority. And kudos to all of us that worked and created that really small minority this year. They've done a few things already. They've passed some sort of performative, or not passed, but advanced some performative legislation. For instance, the Taxpayer Data Protection Act. They advanced, it's not going to go anywhere, but that is an act that would protect our private data from being taken by outside forces. And that's just typical of a lot of the legislation that they're doing, and they're going to continue to do that. They've been instructed by Hakeem Jeffries to have immediate and regular town halls. We're already in our second one here in Marin County with Jared Huffman. He just scheduled his second one. So if you are in a blue district and you have a Democratic representative, they should be holding those town halls. One of the things that we have to remember about the Senate and the House is that there are many vulnerable members that aren't in blue districts like we are in Marin, or not in blue states like California. They don't have quite the freedom to be as loud as we would like them to be. So we just need to recognize that there are members there whose priority is to stay in office and to be elected, and they need to follow the energy of their constituents. We've seen the approval ratings. They're not great, but they aren't tanking yet. There's many areas of the country that have yet to really be fully aware of what's happening. So we have to respect that those representatives and senators are the pulse of their district or state and will be responding accordingly. One of the things that Jeffries did was initiate this rapid response task force within the House, and that will give those members like Jared Huffman and Nancy Pelosi and people that live in blue districts that are very safe, that can be very loud, an opportunity to amplify that message. So that little mini caucus will be very powerful. We're going to watch them and see what they do and what they put out. Just be cognizant of the fact that not everybody is going to be free to do that. Priority of Jeffries right now is to win back the House in 2026. So a lot of the things that he's doing is in that vein. We should still be loud. We should still be pressuring everybody, but it's a good thing to keep in mind. The judicial branch is one of our strongest tools right now. It is not bending. They filed at least 55, I think we're close to over 60 as of today, lawsuits from individuals, organizations, state governments, city governments, county governments have filed. We've already won 11 suits already. We've had 2 small setbacks backs on procedural. There was one case today that went Trump's way, but for the most part, it's holding. We're looking at groups like the ACLU, Democracy Forward, Public Citizen are filing those suits. So Democracy Docket is a great source to look every day. They'll keep you updated on how those lawsuits are going. A major part of those lawsuits and a major force And a major tool that we have are our states ourselves. We know that our country was designed to have a balance between state and federal power. Republicans pushed that state power for generations. In 2016 to 2020, we had about 5 states in the whole country that had a Democratic trifecta. Thanks to a lot of the work, a lot of you people out there, we now have 15 states that have a trifecta. We have 23 have Republican, the rest are mixed, but there's an additional 5 states that have Democratic executive branches. So those 20 states plus a couple of more have formed a pretty large wall, 22 states that have filed a lot of lawsuits against the administration. And that's where a lot of the rulings and a lot of the brushback is going to come from. We also have seen here in California, our governor calling a special legislative session, bringing his legislature back in on their holiday to work on funding, not only to fund extra funding to hire staff and resources to file those lawsuits, but to also give additional resources to organizations and agencies throughout the state to fight back on things like immigration and climate change and healthcare and educational programs in our schools that are going to be struck with lack of losing funding. So $50 million was just released here in California this week into those agencies in order to strengthen them for the onslaught that's going to come. The press is a complicated issue. We're all well aware that mainstream media abandoned their responsibility really to accurately cover the election and alert the United States, the people here about the risks of a Trump administration. We're seeing a little bit of stronger language coming from them this week, but it's still fairly weak. What I want to stress is the absolute explosion of independent media, non-corporate funded media. We've always had it. New sources, new sites, new groups every single day. Those that have been in place, their membership is exploding. They're able to do so much more. And Susan's going to talk a little bit about that once she looks over the website, but there's a lot of new sources for us to look at, for us to evaluate. Our media consumption is a big decision out there for all of us. And so that leads us to us. What can we do? We know this is a rapidly changing situation. We know that things are moving very, very quickly. What can we actually do? We're used to doing. Most of you on this, a lot of you on this call, they phone banked with us, you postcarded with us or for other organizations, you knocked on doors, you donated. Those tools are not as transferable to work in a protest opposition kind of movement. So we're all going to need to learn some new things, try some new things. Elections are still very important. We're going to be working in them all year. Those tools still work, but we need to do some new things. The first thing we have to do is be aware. We have to be aware how fast things are changing. We have to be realistic. I don't think we need to be patient, but we just need to be realistic and not get overly frustrated if things don't seem to be moving and evolving, as quickly as it's coming at us. We've seen enormous amounts of growth in just 23 days. We've organized successful sit-ins and meetings with our senators. We've held the 50 state, 50 capital marches. We've got a great phone calling into our districts. Everybody's doing that. We've seen this growth of media. A lot has happened, so we need to be aware of that, but that it is an organic situation. A lot of the country is not engaged yet. They will be as the destruction of this administration gets into people's lives. We're going to see new people all the time. Joy is on this call. She held her monthly postcarding event yesterday. It was the largest we've ever had, and a lot of new people. So new people are going to constantly be joining. Those of us that run groups and work with people, we need to have open arms, not only for them, but maybe for some people that didn't even vote for us in November. So we're going to see a lot of new faces and a lot of new energy. We need to stay informed. And this means evaluating and looking at our media consumption, where we're getting it. Look at some new sources. There's a lot out there. And again, it's changing really rapidly, but evaluate what works for you, how much you can take in at a time, take care of yourselves. But definitely the media landscape is changing really rapidly. We need to stay engaged. We need to stay engaged with our elected officials. That is critical. Everyone should be signed up to receive their newsletters from their Congress people and their senators. This doesn't, you will not necessarily be on that list unless you sign up for it. Just donating to them or calling their offices doesn't necessarily put you on that list. So make sure you're getting their newsletters so that you know every day what's happening out there. You're able to get to their town halls, and you have that opportunity, to go back and forth with them. You also want to be engaged with us. You need to be engaged in the movement. You need to look at organizations that you can join, and and that includes taking action. And what we're encouraging people to do now is to look at both their national focus and their local focus, because a lot of the work, a lot of the protest movement is done really on a local scale. So we love having you working with us, and we love having you, here tonight, but it's also really important that you hook up with somebody in your own community, because that's where you're going to find that local work. We're right now, as a movement, not moving towards 1 million people coming to a march in Washington, DC. There's safety issues, security issues. That's not really on the plan right now. It's local and statewide protesting where you're going to be able to find that connection and make that, if that's something that you want to do. Elections, we're still going to work on elections. That's still an action that you can take. They're just as important as they ever were. But again, those tools don't necessarily transfer over. So we're going to need to add new things. Protest, the word protest can mean a lot of things. It can mean a rally. It can mean a meeting with your senator. It can mean signing on for a boycott. It could mean sign-on letters, petitions. It's going to mean a lot of different things. That local work, though, that person-to-person, public-facing protest is definitely going to be happening. It already is. There's one other thing before I turn it back over to Susan that we can do on a local level as a form of a protest. And that is to reach out to those groups that are most impacted in your community, whether those are undocumented communities, whether those are kids in schools whose programs have been cut, people who no longer have access to health care in their communities, whether you can help them financially, whether you can help them by volunteering. Every community is different. So look at your own community. Where can you help those people that are going to be most impacted by the cuts and by the lack of services that is coming? And so again, be aware of the changes, be aware of what's happening, stay informed, make sure your media consumption is something that really works for you and takes advantage of everything that's new that's out there. Stay engaged with your elected representatives and with groups, both national and local, and stay active as you can, whether that's by working in elections, by protesting, or by working with marginalized groups in your community that are most affected. That's where we are right now. May look different next week. I'll take questions at the end, and Susan, I'm turning it over to you to work on to the website.
Thanks so much, Lori. So yeah, I'm going to share my screen now and do a walkthrough of our website refresh. We worked really hard on this to reflect our decision to be a resource for you guys. Trying to move some of my controls so I can see what I'm doing here. I think, can everyone see this? Well, hopefully. All right, so.
That's good.
Okay, cool. All right, so, home and about, for those of you who are new, we of course encourage you to read that. You'll learn a little bit more about us. I'm going to focus on the next 4 categories in the nav bar. So the first one is learn. And again, I want to just kind of show you the drop down because it is very incumbent on all of us to do our own homework. There's just too much information, too many things happening, too many, we all have our various different interests. For any group like Indivisible Marin to be the group that keeps you informed. So we've created this page, Stay Informed, with some of our favorite Substack authors. I don't want to spend too much time on this walkthrough because I realize that we want to make time for questions, and this is something that you can all, and I hope you will all, spend a good amount of time on the website going through it on your own later. But I think we can all agree that the mainstream media has been a bad actor in recent years. They're driven by profits and trying to get as many clicks and eyeballs, which means a lot of, anxiety provoking coverage. And they're also seeming to be increasingly trying to curry favor with the Trump administration. So we are really recommending independent forms of media for you to get your news. Here are 4 Substack authors that we suggest. Chop Wood, Carry Water by Jessica Craven is great, in particular for daily actions. We'll continue to send you actions like, call your senators about this or that, but not daily. And Jess does a fabulous job of getting actions out daily for those of you who have that desire to be doing stuff every single day. Simon Rosenberg is a veteran Democratic strategist who has started a community called Hopium. And I highly recommend not only his Substack, but his meetings. He hosts meetings for paid subscribers, and I have found them to be so informative, inspiring, and really grounding. So attending meetings of some of these influencers can really be a good use of your time, a much better use of your time than this is my opinion and my soapbox a little bit, but a much better use of your time than turning on MSNBC and getting yourself all freaked out. Today's edition, Robert Hubble reports on the news of the day through a lens of hope and also gives advice on actions. He also has a Saturday morning, Substack live event that you can go to. Again, all these things provide a sense of community, a sense of inspiration. And Dan Pfeiffer, of course, is the former Obama communications advisor, now with Pod Save America, and is really brilliant on messaging strategy in particular. So those are 4. We could have listed 10, but we didn't want to overwhelm you. That would be a good starting point. And then as far as major news outlets go, The Guardian US does a fabulous job. It's kind of ironic that we have to go outside of the US for a good news outlet, but Guardian does a great job. ProPublica, Midas Touch News is a newer one of these, new media companies that's popping up that is worth following. And personally, I still follow the New York Times. I know a lot of people are angry at the New York Times. I often feel angry when I read their coverage, but I do think it's important to see what is being reported in the mainstream news, so that we know what other people are reading and what other people are seeing and what messages are out there. And I would say that in that respect, the New York Times is the least bad choice, better than the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal or others. So I keep my New York Times subscription. I scan the headlines. It helps keep me current on what is being reported in the mainstream. And I've already made my pitch about watching television news. I just don't feel that it's an efficient use of our time. It's always, anxiety provoking. And you can't control what if you're interested in certain topics, you have no control. So you might have the news on for an hour and not really get to the topics that you're interested in. And I think, we all need to start looking at our time as a valuable resource for the movement, because the time that we're spending watching television and being just agitated and wanting to, throw something at the television isn't helping the movement. Okay, so that's just one page. I guess I have to pick up the pace here a little. We're also really encouraging people to join multiple groups. We would love it if you would stay with Indie Marin and receive our newsletters and follow along and come to our meetings, but we're not we can't provide you with everything you need. Indivisible National is doing a phenomenal job in this moment. They really have been ever since the election loss. So encourage you to subscribe to their email list. Their website has some great actions. The founders, Leah and Ezra, are holding weekly meetings that are also just full of ideas for ways to be involved and are inspiring. And they wrote a new updated guide, which is worth reading. So you can see these are all links here. I hope you all, after this meeting, will spend a good amount of time here on this website, clicking on these links if they are new to you. As we've said, because we have people from around the country, we will not be as focused on local actions. As Lori mentioned, we have a wonderful group that meets in Novato, writing postcards. That's a great source of community, but we likely won't be having a lot of community meetings. So if that's what you're looking for, or if you're not in Marin, you're really importantly, all of you who don't live in Marin, please go to the Indivisible National website, do a zip code search, find a group near you and join them as well, because these local actions are really an important way for us to make a difference in this environment. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but we've listed some of our other primary partners that are doing great work. Activate America is our postcarding partner. If you'd like to write postcards, you can now order directly from them. Bay Area Coalition is our phone banking and canvassing partner. They are currently running phone banks for the race in Wisconsin, the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin, and Common Cause is just a bulwark against in protecting democracy. They're running some good phone banks right now. So be a part of multiple groups, have multiple sources of input. And if you're one of those people who are like rolling your eyes thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get so many emails. Yeah. I probably get 300 emails a day. So, you can skim through them. You can just delete. You can unsubscribe when you need to unsubscribe, but be scanning, be looking, be open to emails that maybe are going to give you some information that you didn't know. So yeah, I think it's incumbent on all of us to take the time to be in touch and read a lot. Set aside a time in the day that you can do this. And I do want to offer a caveat. We have a lot of our members who are retired. And so what I'm saying may be more realistic for those people. I understand that people with full-time jobs, kids in their, still in the household, this type of thing. What I'm describing may be a bridge too far. So that's why we all have to just determine ourselves what is the right fit for us. What can we do given our circumstances, and just set our own goals. If it's, 10 minutes of reading the news a day, not an hour, that's great. Whatever is right for you. So then, oh wait, did I cover all the learn? Recommended reading. This is just a list of some articles that we thought were really pivotal, a couple of good books. We'll continue to update this list, so come here often. The most recent important articles will be at the top. So this is a good page to just visit for good material. Then fight, of course, is a key part of what we're all wanting to do right now. Calling your reps, this gives you here all of the tools that you need, how to make calls, apps, apps you can use. 5Calls is a really important app right now. I'm not going to go through the details, but this gives you the tools you need to be regularly calling your reps. Encourage you all to put your reps in your contacts. So when you're out walking your dog, you've got your 3 members of Congress in your phone and you can easily bang out those calls. Protest rallies. This is huge. A lot of people very interested in taking to the streets and being visible in this way. Some national groups have been leading on this. Indivisible, together with Move On and Working Families Party, led an initiative last week that resulted in 300 events across the country. We co-hosted an event here in San Francisco with some other partners. So I do anticipate that these leading groups will continue to organize protests and actions in the streets. I do want to address that there is a newer, more organic form of organizing that is is gaining a lot of momentum. The actual organizers are keeping themselves a little on the down low. And at first, I have to admit, I was concerned about the lack of transparency in these events. But they did organize successfully events across the country as part of the 50501 last week. The events did remain peaceful. They've got events coming up on President's Day. They're also organizing a day of no spending. So this is new. This is kind of new that there are people organizing a bit under the radar. And so Indivisible Marin has taken the position that we are not promoting these events, but neither are we discouraging our members from participating. It's really a personal decision depending on your own risk tolerance levels. And so we've included here on this page links because it's hard to get information on where these rallies are happening. I did quite a bit of digging to find the links that are here, which hopefully will guide those of you who do want to follow these events. And we have some links for good resources for safety. Wow, I'm realizing now we've only got 15 minutes. I don't want to keep talking, actually. So let me just say quickly, being a messenger in your own life with your own networks is really important. We've got some good resources here on how you can have meaningful conversations with people in your life. It's so important that we counter the polarized environment and have people that have different political beliefs be able to talk to each other constructively. So we've got some tips here. And then our elect page lists the ways that you can get involved in electoral efforts in 2025. The most time sensitive is this special election in Wisconsin coming up on April 1st. There is now phone banking available. There's postcarding available. There are ways to get involved doing texting that is of a more general electoral focus. So again, if doing electoral work interests you, this page is a resource. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Betty, who's been keeping track of your questions, and we'll answer as many as we can. We'll stay on till as needed past the hour to answer questions. For those of you who have a commitment at the top of the hour, certainly feel free to sign off. And I'll just say now, thank you so much for joining us. It's really heartening that we had nearly 300 people here. And I'm sorry, I missed a key thing on the website that I do want to say. Under the fight section, we are asking for those of you, especially those of you who are newer, we need more energy in the leadership team. Many of us on the steering committee have been doing this for 8 years, fairly full time, and we need reinforcements. So on the website, there's a page that's called Step Up Your Commitment, and we lay out the parameters for stepping up to become a leader. At Marin, we have the steering committee, and then we have a broader leadership team, which is basically anyone who's willing to take on an ongoing responsibility. And you can read about that, and there's a form if you're interested in applying to become a leader. We really welcome more energy to the team. Okay, over to Betty for questions. You're muted.
Okay, we have a lot of questions, so I'll just start and try to put them in some kind of an order that will make sense. One order is that we have many people asking a similar question, which is, do we have any way to prioritize the ways for citizens to push back? What are the most effective ways? And somebody wondered about voter registration as being sort of a pillar of activism.
Okay, I'll take a first pass at that and then maybe turn it to you, Lori, for the voter reg part. You know, I really think we need to look to the national leaders for guidance on the best ways that we can organize as a movement. And I think that Indivisible National is the primary lead for us on that. So really encourage y'all to sign up for their list. Join Lee and Ezra's meetings. You know, we're we're just folks like you guys, right? We don't have the answers to the big, difficult questions. We're just doing our best to do some good every day. But I really think following movement leaders like Indivisible National, I believe Simon Rosenberg, attending his meetings for subscribers is very informative and can guide our activism broadly. Lori, you want to chat about voter reg?
Yeah, voter reg is, I mean, it's always been a big thing that we do, you know, between elections. So yes, it's a really important thing. We should continue to do it. That's something, whatever moves you, whatever you connect with is what you should be doing, because that's where you're going to put the most amount of energy. So if that's something you love to do, yeah, you should keep doing it. Field Team 6 is, you know, they work year round at that. Your state party and your county parties will also usually have information on how to run your own within your own community.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I see a few hands raised. We're not calling on raised hands or taking people off mute. If you have a question, please type it in the chat with the word question. We'll try to get to it. Okay, back to you, Betty.
Okay, so David is wondering who you think are the most important people running right now that they should be sending money to.
Oh, that's a great question. On the Senate side, John Ossoff. On the House side, right now, the priority would be those what we call frontline candidates, those candidates that are in purple districts that are incumbents. Here, that would be Adam Gray, Derek Tran, Dave Min, and George Whitesides. Those are our new ones. You could consider somebody like Josh Harder and Mike Levin down in San Diego. Those are our frontline candidates here. You can reach out to me if you live in a different state and I can help you with that. But anybody who's in a purple toss-up district that's an incumbent for 2026 is probably out of money from last year and needs funds. definitely in the Senate side, John Ossoff.
And another question from David, how often should we be calling our representatives? Simon Rosenberg says, just keep calling, but he doesn't know really what that means if the message hasn't changed.
Yeah, I'll take that. There are different points of view on that question. Indivisible National would say, along with Simon, keep calling every day as much as, there's a counter argument that too many calls is clogging the lines. For example, with our Democratic members of Congress, let's say members of Congress in Los Angeles and victims of the fire that are trying to get help from their member of Congress might have trouble getting through. So I personally feel that there's a balance. And one of the things, I think I'll add this to the website, but it occurred to me today that I think is so important, is that what really, it's important that we keep calling our Democratic members of Congress and encouraging them to be louder. I'm not giving them a pass at all. I think there's a lot more they can be doing. And it's the Republican members of Congress who can really change the outcome. If a Republican hadn't voted for, or a couple of them hadn't voted for Robert Kennedy Jr., that would have changed the outcome. So if any of you live in areas where you have a Republican representative, you call every 5 minutes. And what occurred to me today is that all of us who know people, this is where the relational organizing, our personal networks, anybody that has a Republican member of Congress, in the House or the Senate, reach out to them and educate them on the importance of calling their representative. Send them our webpage with all the tools and help empower them to make the calls. Because the more that we can get people calling Republicans and saying, essentially, this isn't what I voted for. I didn't vote for this, because that's really how we ultimately defeat Trump, is making him and his agenda unpopular with the American people. So that's what we can do.
One point to add, Susan, and you may have mentioned this already, is that we don't recommend calling people that are not your senators or not your representative.
Correct.
They tally these, first of all, they check you, when you do call, you need to identify your address, your zip code. They will verify that. And they tally the number of calls coming in for one thing or another, and your vote will not count. Your call will not count and not go to that representative if you don't vote for that person. So as much as we'd love to go and scream at, Ted Cruz or, Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's a waste of your time. It is not going to get to that.
And it also clogs up the lines for their constituents.
Yeah, for their own.
And
We can
Indivisible
encourage people who live
National
there,
has been
but
very
we
firm
can't do it
about
ourselves.
that from the very beginning. It's not just us. It's Indivisible National and other leading groups are very clear. Don't call people who are not your representatives. I do think there is one exception to that, which is that if somebody is in a position of national responsibility, I then personally think it's fair game to call Hakeem Jeffries' office or Chuck Schumer's office. But as Lori said, don't call Marjorie Taylor Greene or Ted Cruz or anything like that unless you're a constituent. Next question.
Okay,
we'll try to go through questions quickly, and we will stay on past the hour, but also feel free to sign off whenever you need to go.
Okay, so Shauna says, does Indy Marin do any outreach to Gen Z? She's wondering how we might engage voters who didn't come out last year and voters who are turning 18 before the next election.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I would say that we don't, only because we're not well positioned for that. We're mainly a bunch of, 60 somethings. This is an area where, as I said, we're looking for new energy, new leadership. So if any of you out there are a member of Gen Z or a millennial, or feel that you have ideas for how we can better outreach to that group of people and get them engaged, we would welcome your energy in that effort. So again, there's a web page that says, step up your commitment. We would love to do more work with younger people.
And then we've got some questions sort of under the heading of one questioner who wondered where the Democratic leadership is. And then more specifically, others have asked about Jared Huffman, sincerely wondering, what is he doing that is really loud and useful? And will Indy Marin make the links to the Huffman town halls available?
It's already on the web. It's already on our calendar, his next meeting. It's on our calendar.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Huffman, in my opinion, I think it's shared by a steering committee, is doing an outstanding job. He is an excellent example of a member of Congress who is speaking out loudly. He formed the Project 2025, the Stop Project 2025 task force even before the election, has been speaking out consistently in the press. He's already held one town hall. He's got another scheduled. No, we won't post recordings of his events. It's really on you guys. If you are a constituent of Jared's, as Lori said, sign up for his newsletter, go to his website, check his links for the recordings. It's on you really to stay up to speed on what he's doing. But I will say he's an outstanding example. What was the other part of the question, Betty?
Well, you already said what he's doing that's loud and useful. That was really it. It was sort of a few people, and the first person wondering, where is the Democratic leadership?
Oh, where is the Democratic leadership? Again, that's a very nuanced situation. And I do think that, again, I'm getting back to that it's really important to do your homework, because the Democratic leadership is doing a lot. It may not be enough in many of our view, but they're not doing nothing. So, I think sometimes this complaining and negativity and like the Democrats suck and they're not doing anything can just be contagious and isn't really well informed. So before you complain, do your homework. And then after you've done your homework, if you still feel, and I do feel there is room for Democrats to do more and stand up more. For me, the jury's still a little out on Hakeem Jeffries. He's doing some stuff. He's also, seeming a bit conciliatory on some stuff, but that's a personal opinion. So I think you all should do your reading, form your opinions, and then, act accordingly. If you really feel after you've done the homework that the leadership is deserving of criticism, then go for it. Criticize, post on social media, do whatever it is to complain. Blue Sky, by the way, is a great new social media outlet where a lot of progressives are. So that's a good place to be.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that. I think that one of the things that's striking is that we don't have a national voice right now. We don't have a national head of the party. There isn't somebody out there that, normally we're used to working for a candidate that guides us and inspires us. We don't have that right now. That's not necessarily a bad thing. As Susan's said over and over, it's an organic situation. We're going to grow new leaders that are going to come out of this. They're not going to come out overnight. So make your voices loud that you want leadership and you want to see leadership, but it's not a bad thing that someone just hasn't jumped in and said, I'm the voice of this movement from Washington. I don't think in the long run, that is a helpful thing for us. So we're going to need to let this grow a little bit. Who knows it'll be? It'll probably be several people. It's too early for a presidential, group to speak up. I think another problem is that all of these leaders are under a little bit of a threat. Gavin Newsom is a perfect example. They can't afford right now to antagonize, and I know it's awful and it feels like we're being held hostage, but having money withheld from California right now for fire relief is something they're holding over our head. Until all of this settles out and we decide just how much retribution there's going to be for people that speak out, these people are not going to be willing to sacrifice their primary jobs right now, which is to lead a state, whether it's Gretchen Whitmer or Gavin Newsom or anybody. So I think we just need to give it a little bit of time. I think we will see leaders and we will see it, but 23 days is just, we don't want to see somebody go too fast, too soon and set us back.
Yeah. And, I know it feels to me as well that it's been an eternity since Trump took office, but it's been 3 weeks and 2 days. So everyone is figuring it out, members of Congress. This is absolutely everyone's figuring it out. And I think we have to give people a bit of grace in this moment, because just screaming and obstructing, maybe that's what they should be doing, or maybe not. Maybe there's a more productive path. So this is going to play out over a period of time, and it's really agonizing and it's really difficult, but I just think we have to have some perspective on giving things a bit of time to play out.
One housekeeping thing, because I know we're up
Yeah.
at the clock. There was a question about whether there would be a meeting video. And yes, the
Mhm.
meeting's being recorded and we will send that out to people. So there are more questions. Susan, do we want to let people leave?
Why don't we stay on till 6:15? And if people have a commitment and would like to sign off, thank you for coming. We, as Betty said, are recording this meeting. We will send it to everyone who signed up. We'll probably send it to everyone on our mailing list and also post it on our website. The red band on our website, I didn't point this out, but it's at the top of every page. And that's where we post kind of items of interest. So we'll put a link to the recording in the red band, and appreciate you sharing it with, people that that you think might benefit from the information.
Okay, so in the same vein as the question about which candidates to support, Alyssa and Peggy are wondering which organizations, because they're getting a lot of requests for money from organizations. Who do you think?
Yeah.
They want
Yeah,
to get.
that's another great question. And it is our intention to add a page to our website that makes recommendations on places to donate. And of course, there's a broad range of people that's not too soon to be contributing to candidates or groups doing electoral work. Personally, right now, I'm putting my dollars to the groups that are doing the legal work. Democracy Forward, is that it, Lori? Is doing great work. What's the other group?
Public Citizen and
Public
the
Citizen.
ACLU.
Yeah, so I think that's a great place for donations right now. Indivisible is doing great work, and so we will try to get a page up. But in the meantime, if you have questions, always feel free to write us at info@indivisibleMarin.org. But I've got a caveat to that because, you know, we on the steering committee are pretty depleted and trying our best in this environment that we didn't hope for. You know, we hoped that Kamala would have won and that we'd all be, you know, kicking back a little this year, but that didn't work out. So we're persevering. But we're trying to maintain our own resources and balance in our lives. And so if there's a question you have that you could really answer yourself by going to the website, please do that. You know, please don't write us and say, oh, when's your next meeting? You know, go to the calendar page, please. Or, you know, anytime you have a question, please first look through the website because we put a lot of effort into giving you the answers there. And on the subject of being depleted, maybe this is the right time to talk about it. I know we're not alone in being depleted. There's many of you in this meeting who've been doing this work for 8 years or 6 years or 4 years and really made lots of sacrifices. And then there's those of you in this room who are newer and have a lot of energy and are like, oh my God, let's take to the streets. We got to do more, you know? So we all need to find our own balance in our life. It's important, you know, that we sustain ourselves personally for the long term. So be good to yourself, you know, make sure you find whatever it is that brings you joy, make sure that you carve out time for those things that give you joy and carve out time for self-care and all those things. We all deserve to take care of ourselves through this very difficult time that's, you know, emotionally difficult. And so self-care is all the more important. So I think it's important that we look for ways to help. And in each day that we carve out some time, if it's an hour, 2 hours to do something that we feel is helping the cause, but then we turn it off, you know, and we give ourselves the benefit of having that time to sustain ourselves through our personal lives and self-care. Okay, back to Betty.
Okay, so Mary's wondering if you have any thoughts about the proposed economic boycott on February 28th, and that is a day where we've been asked not to spend money to send a message.
Yeah. Well, I had intended to have a page on the website around consumer advocacy. And I just didn't get to it, and we will. But I think the idea of the no spending day is brilliant. I've done in my past life, I've done a fair amount of work around boycotts and this type of thing. And a boycott can be very hard to have impact. For example, if there was some movement for everyone to stop using Amazon, probably wouldn't work because the number of people it would take to affect Jeff Bezos would be, you know, millions and millions of people would need to stop using Amazon. And people are very attached to using Amazon. So what I think is really brilliant about this particular ask is that it's one day. We can all do that, right? We can all not purchase something for one day. So I think it's a great idea, and we'll be sure to send out information in our newsletter about it. It's the 28th, I believe, of this month.
Yes. Okay, so Sydney has a question about a bill, HR 8281, that is supposed to be a threat to a married woman's ability to vote in federal elections. Are you aware of this, and is Indy Marin taking a position?
I'm not aware. Are you, Lori?
Yeah, and I think that's actually was something that Republicans tried to do a little while ago. Something like that is never going to pass. So they just don't have enough majority to pass anything like that. So that kind of stuff is just performative, and we do the same on our side. I wouldn't worry about it. There's no way that they're going to get their entire caucus to vote for something like that. So.
Okay, then
Right.
Stephanie is wondering, were you going to say something else, Lori?
No.
Oh, okay. Stephanie's wondering if there are other chapters in Marin that are focused on local action that you're aware of.
Yeah, Indivisible Sausalito has been around a long time, and they do tend to do more in-person meetings. And I saw on Facebook, I haven't had a chance to really look into it, but I believe a new group, new Indivisible group may have started in Novato. So what I'd recommend if you're, well, first of all, let me just say that if somebody through our leader recruitment effort materialized that wanted to organize more local events, then we would have more local events. So if that's something that motivates you and you have, you feel that you've got the time and the skills to do that, please let us know. We would welcome hosting more local events. But in the meantime, I would say go to the Indivisible website, do a zip code search, and you'll see the other local groups, and you can check them out, attend some of their meetings and see if they're a fit for you. And hopefully that would be in addition to Indivisible Marin. But, certainly if you find a group that's a better fit for you and you feel that you have bandwidth just to be part of one group, you should please go to that group. We want everyone to find the right advocacy home for them.
And then there were a couple of questions about the courts and wondering if citizens have any impact on the speed at which the courts work, that Trump's moving at lightning speed and these things are starting to be implemented, as with USAID. How can our courts move faster, or how can we impact those courts?
I can take that one. I don't think we want our courts to move faster. They need to follow due process. They need to do this by the book, or it's going to come back to haunt them in a higher up case. They're going to have grounds for appeal. So they're going, I mean, I think it's actually gone pretty quickly, considering it's only been 23 days. We've already had quite a lot of movement. We can't stop the administration from doing something. We can only stop it after the fact. So that's unfortunate, but I think they're moving pretty quickly, and I don't see a role for the public as far as leaning on the judiciary. I think they're doing the right thing. We just need to let them do their thing. A 95% failure record for a movement is pretty good.
I'm sorry, Lori, what do you mean by the 95% failure?
95% of the cases that Trump and his administration have filed since 2016 have failed. So have been tossed out. So they know that. They just want to clog up the system. But I do think there's a risk of the courts cutting any corners at all and having it come back to because they're going to appeal everything. And they need to run everything by the book so that their rulings will stand on appeal.
Yeah, I agree with what Lori said, and I'll just add that the whole nature of the judicial branch is that it's not influenced by outside. It shouldn't have outside influence. It's only influenced by the law. So I don't see that as a place for advocacy.
We have seen even the Republican Congress is on public record is telling Trump, you need to obey what they say. And he even did come out today and said that he would honor their decisions. I have no idea if he really will, but it really is what's working right now is the courts for us. And it worked for us in 2020 too.
And then Lee wonders if you're aware of news coverage of protests being suppressed.
I haven't seen that.
No, I haven't.
Okay. I think a lot of these you answered in terms of our website. Many of these questions could be answered going to the website. one last one, maybe. Do you think it's a good idea for blue state residents to donate and help other vulnerable representatives and senators?
Yes.
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 Big
You
hit.
know, what Blue
Yes.
State,
100%.
Blue State residents should be doing as much as we can to support not only with our dollars, but if there are actions that we can do to support red and purple districts. And this, you know, I want to circle back to what I said earlier. I imagine many people on this call know people that live in red states. You know, it can be, I don't know, maybe a little awkward to reach out to your college roommate that you haven't talked to in a while, but say, hey, you know, how are you doing? And, you know, are you interested in chatting at all about the political situation? And, you know, just put yourself out there a little bit, because that human to human connection, our society, our country has become so siloed that I think the more that Democrats can reach out to people in rural areas, people of different political stripes, and have conversations, human conversations, that's going to do a lot of good over time. So yeah, it's 6:15 now. I just want to really thank everyone for coming and for hanging in there. We welcome, you know, all of your participation. We really encourage, as I've said repeatedly, find your own path. These are very hard times, but every bit of good we can each do in our personal lives. And that can be, you know, volunteering at a food pantry or helping your elderly neighbor next door. I'm not really a spiritual person, but I do believe that there's some kind of karma. And if we can all contribute positively to the energy in the world right now, I do believe that that will counteract the dark forces. And it's just really important to know that every act of kindness, every positive thing you can do will result in good. And conversely, try to withhold the negativity. I mean, we can all feel negative, but, you know, voicing that in public, or, you know, just like venting constantly to other people and just increasing other people's anxiety isn't really productive. So think about that as well. Try to be a voice for good and for constructive action. And with that, we'll close. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to get through this together. And I do believe in the end, and it may take quite a while, the good guys will prevail. Good night, everyone.